I've just realised I'm like active camo.
Yeah.
Blending into the background.
You are actually, yeah.
That's right. Hopefully that'll appear on the screen.
Yeah.
End of a bit of an era,
I know.
isn't it?
I'll get my house back.
So after 6 months of living with Sonia, it's been, during this crisis, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
And you've become a big fan favourite on the channel.
Well, I think actually it's probably the cat, but it's okay.
We'll have to get the cats in for the views at
Yeah.
some point. So I thought I'd throw it over to you guys to ask us a bunch of questions. So what do you reckon? Should we go Instagram first or YouTube?
Let's go Insta.
Insta. Okay, cool. I'm going to need my specs here. First one from Matt. How are you? Real deep probing question.
Yeah, pretty good. Just had a week off work. Not looking forward to going back to work.
Next question. How are you both? Again, a common thing. People worrying a lot about us.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
And how are your families doing?
Our families are good, thank you. It's been really nice that my mum, who's fairly elderly, has had a bit of chance over the last couple of months to get out, go to the pub for a nice outdoor meal with lots of social distancing. Just a bit sad that they're going to head back towards, shielding and the like, and I think that's the same with everyone. We're all just looking at all of our friends and family who need to be careful, thinking it's going to be a tough winter.
It's good to, you need to get the balance right, don't you? But it has been super important in this small window where the prevalence has been quite low to be able to see some people. And I know one of my friends was saying that, he's got kids and he hasn't been out for so long, and he realised when he went out how much he kind of missed it. He kind of fit into this new...
Yeah. Well, we had a 2-day staycation this week, and it was lovely. It was nice to plug some money back into local businesses, and it was nice just to get away for a couple of days into the countryside.
Good. And my folks are doing really well too. I think they've responded really well. I think the worry is that people don't get out and about, and when people are sort of older years, that can be a real problem. Reducing your mobility can hit people pretty hard, but they've been doing walks, they've been doing kind of YouTube fitness videos, so they actually I think their fitness has probably improved.
That's good.
Which is really good. Which also I've seen Boris has been on a bit of a fitness thing as well.
He's got a personal trainer now.
How did you choose your specialisations?
When I was a junior doctor in my first couple of years, the rotations are such that you go through a whole load of different specialties. And the first job I did after my qualifying fully was an intensive care job in the unit that I now work. And I think I knew within about 2 weeks of working there that not only was that going to be the specialty that I was going to do, but that was also going to be the place that I was going to do it.
Fantastic.
Nothing else came close.
So what were the kind of things that you saw there?
I think it's exciting. You can get your kicks quite a lot from the pace of the work sometimes when you're saving lives and the like. At other times you've got the opportunity to do a lot of teaching because we're lucky that we have a small number of patients in comparison to the other wards, so we can really focus on them, and we can focus on training the junior doctors and the medical students all like that.
I think I certainly know when I did ward jobs, that was one of my frustrations, is often you can't quite give the care that people deserve.
Yeah.
I think we always do safe care in the NHS, obviously with the exceptions that do happen, but there's safety, and then there's what you really want to do for patients. And it's only, for me, I've never worked in intensive care, but when I worked in the hospice, that was the only time where we had kind of one-on-one nursing and small doctors' numbers to patients. So you could do that extra bit. Yeah. So I guess that's one of the things as well.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I don't like doing things halfway. So, like you say, if I've got a complicated patient, I really want to be able to have the time to dedicate to them to try and work things out and make things better for them. And sometimes, if you're working in a really busy environment, GP practice or A&E or medical wards, sometimes you really are overwhelmed by the amount of work that has to be done, and you have to limit what you're doing, and maybe some of that is just communication with families, that kind of thing, but that's equally important.
I think one of the tips I heard for choosing your specialty was that once you work in the specialty, it's very different really. I know you get a lot of exposure at medical school, but actually working in the specialty, if you can get that in your early years, that's really good. But also the people you work with tend to fit your personality in that as well?
I think so. I think a lot of people end up in a certain field of medicine because they've had a very good attachment there as a junior doctor, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But some people may find actually they don't like the specialty, having then rotated through different hospitals doing the same type of medicine. But there's plenty of opportunity to switch along the way if you do find that you'd rather do something else.
One of the reasons why I like emergency medicine, which I guess is similar to intensive care, is that you don't really have your life planned out for you weeks and months in advance. So in some specialties, you'll have clinics and surgical operations. And if I just wouldn't be the type of person to look at my calendar and see the next 6 months all blocked out. That just wouldn't suit me. I don't know.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what's coming through the door, and that variety is great.
Yeah. Just someone says, thank God I love Dr Sonia. Okay, not really a question. More like a compliment.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear.
Do either of you feel that you'll need counselling, any further mental health aid after dealing firsthand with the crisis? Has it impacted your mental health?
I think it impacts everyone's mental health. I mean, what we've been through is something that none of us were really expecting to have to go through, I suppose. And we've all got to find our ways to cope with it. I think it's actually been quite useful having you stay here, because we've been doing a lot of kind of debriefing off each other as we get home. And I think a lot of the counselling that we use is more talking to colleagues and friends. That's often the most important thing. Although one thing that's very good at our ICU is we've now got funding to get some psychological support in for both patient families and for the staff. And we haven't had that before, so I think that's one of the good things perhaps to come out of COVID.
Yeah, that's good. I agree with you. Living with you has been really good to chat things through, because I feel like I've got an idea of what's happening across the hospital. But yeah, I know there are support services available. I would say for me personally, I've seen probably as many harrowing things. You know, we saw patients come in the emergency department, but we didn't really see their journey much after that first few hours. So, you know, we kind of saw the fear, but we didn't really see the outcome. So that's almost quite protective. I've seen much more harrowing stuff, you know, outside of COVID. And there are support services available, but I know that many other people, I've heard about lots of doctors now looking at leaving medicine because of this crisis. It has highlighted a lot of the strain that is put under doctors, and not just doctors, but all healthcare professionals.
I think it was easy at the peak to ride the wave where everyone was out clapping for us, thinking we were superheroes, but actually we are absolutely no different to you. You know, we're human beings, and we feel everything that you feel, and that's something that can sometimes get a bit forgotten. So what I would say is that I've seen lots of harrowing things before, but the difference in COVID perhaps was the volume of it. And for me, sometimes that meant losing 3 or 4 patients in a day, and then doing it again the next day. And that was harrowing, because we were the decision makers. You know, as the consultants, ultimately you are the ones making the decisions, and you have to carry that burden. So I think maybe this whole thing has highlighted to people out there that all healthcare workers probably do carry a lot on their shoulders to try and protect patients and families.
They go on to say, thank you to you both for your admirable work. There you go. I'd go outside and clap for you, but I know that's pointless. Okay, this is a great one, particularly for us, I think. How tough is medical school? And did you ever get so exhausted or frustrated that you thought about quitting?
So I've got a nephew in the house who's about to go to college, to university, so I better not say too many, truths about university. Nowhere near as tough as being a doctor.
Right.
Let's put it that way. University was fun. It was hard work. It was academically challenging. But you also got to sleep all night every night if you chose to. Whereas as a doctor, you get the hard work, the challenging, the having to do postgraduate exams at a point where you are physically exhausted by shift work. So personally, medical school was great, and any medical students out there, just enjoy it as long as you can. You've got plenty of time to fret about the worries of the world when you're when you're a bit older.
I found that there's only so much learning I can do in a day. Do you know what I mean? It's quite exhaustive learning, but actually doing a job, although it's more physically demanding, and at the end you kind of, feel like you need a bit of a payback, but I do find that at medical school, sometimes I could be absolutely frazzled just trying to learn stuff, but...
Well, you never really know which bit of what you're trying to learn is applicable until you apply it. There's just huge volumes of knowledge, and everyone's telling you every single bit is as important as the next bit, and all the lecturers come in with their fields telling you this is the bee's knees. Whereas when you're actually doing the job, you work out for yourself the bits that you need to focus on and what you actually need to know. Because I think there is a lot of stuff that's taught at medical school. It's good to have the breadth, but quite honestly, depending on which field you go into, some of it will be largely irrelevant.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's very difficult to know as a student what to prioritise, because also a lot of the stuff you're examined on isn't necessarily the stuff that's important as well. So you kind of need to figure out a way to do both things, learn how to be a good doctor and also to pass the exams. I mean, we see a lot of students, because obviously Sonia at the hospital is the head of the undergraduate medical education. I worked as a teaching fellow as well, looking after some of the students. So I do see that transition. We've seen a lot of the students that I teach have now become doctors, and the change happens. You see them, I don't know, there's a certain amount of apathy sometimes among medical students, having to do the work, just be on the wards. But I can see why, because often being on the wards, you're a bit of a nuisance. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because people are trying to look after patients and often very busy looking after patients. You're a bit of an afterthought. But then suddenly, after a couple of weeks, going from that transition, you're super, super useful. And so you have to take responsibility for your learning as a med student. That's the hardest thing. Just keep putting yourself out there. Turn out every day. Not every hour at medical school, particularly in the hospital, is going to be important. Yeah. But you need to be there, because that 1 hour that's going to be absolute gold, you never know when it's going to turn up. On the second part of the question, did you ever feel about quitting?
No.
You ever had some tough times? Yeah.
Not medical school. Medicine, yeah, but not medical school.
Yeah, likewise. I think because I went into medicine late, it was a big decision at that point, and I almost was kind of so stubborn on it. But it was definitely the right thing for me. I think we've only got for a few. Let's pick up the pace. Rapid fire. Sorry, I've got more than one question. I am a final year paediatric nursing student and wanted to ask, 1, any advice on working in a quick pace environment?
Prioritise. That's my single word of advice on that one. It will take you a little while to work out what you need to prioritise, but there's things that have to be done and there's things that can wait, and other people around you may have differing priorities, but you just remember what you're there for. You're there for the patient, and you'll get it right.
I say trust your instincts, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't think you need to know anything when you start. Really, the learning almost begins, I mean, not necessarily in nursing because they do a lot of hands-on stuff, but really just don't be afraid to ask questions, and trust the learning you do. That have faith in the course. If you've qualified, fantastic. You should have everything you need to be good at the job. Okay, number 2, how to deal with patients' death. Bit of a long one.
Not sure how to fit that one into one sentence.
I would say you learn how to deal with it.
I'd say you do learn. It's not something you come out of medical school equipped to know how to deal with it, and everyone's different in how they do. I think in intensive care, my perspective on it is obviously a fairly large proportion of the patients on ICU will die. In the best of times, maybe 10%. In COVID times, nearer 40% of patients were dying, and therefore it becomes a very frequent event. And I think the perspective you have to take on that is, my job is to prolong people's lives as long as that means a decent quality of life. If that isn't possible, then my job is to ensure that people die well. And actually there's an awful lot to ensuring that someone dies well. They're leaving people behind, the families will often be very, very distraught. And you can lead that family through the process in a way that it's least damaging to them. COVID's made that difficult with us not being able to have visitors.
I would echo that. I mean, having worked in a hospice, you realise that death is a normal thing, and often it's the job of a doctor to facilitate that in the best way. And sometimes death can be a good thing. You know, it can often end a lot of suffering. You know, it can often be akin to torture, some of the medical stuff we do to people. So there has to be a way out at the end. Otherwise, it's just, you know, keeping people alive for the sake of it. Interesting as well, this question's come from a paediatric nurse. So I can imagine that's extremely difficult because you've got, you know, you've got the parents there and, you know, kids that often aren't necessarily aware of everything that they're going through. So I'm sure that adds a whole new aspect to that as well. But again, I think it's about putting on the support of your colleagues as well. They would have seen a lot of things. And sometimes as well, not just death, but sometimes mistakes happen that hit you as hard as well. I know a lot of my friends, when I chat to them, they bring up the death thing with me. And I think for me, some of the biggest things, the saddest and most difficult things haven't been death. It's often been, you know, life-changing things that, you know, disability and other diagnoses that have happened. So, you know, this is what we just have to learn, and you will learn how to deal with it. Any tips on how to form a good doctor and nurse professional relationship?
Respect each other. Everyone's got their job to do. Everyone has different perspectives and different priorities and different pressures coming from outside. But just remember, everyone goes to work in a hospital to do the same thing, which is to give the best care they can for their patients that day. We're all on the same team.
Yeah, a bit of a deep question. It says here, what has been the most heartbreaking experience you have ever had as doctors?
Okay, this one's going to be a bit controversial.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say watching a hospital that I love suffer through lack of funding and resourcing, and feeling that you're just watching something go wrong. That's for me the hardest thing, because the impact of that is on the entire local population, which runs into hundreds of thousands of people.
So you not only see the impact on patients, you see the impact on colleagues and
staff, everyone. You just think, well, you know, this is the hospital that treats my family. This is the hospital that treats my friends. And I think when you become a consultant, most consultants in the UK don't really shift jobs after they've got their post. They're there for 20, 30 years. You commit yourself in a big way to a place. And I think that to see an NHS struggle so much and see standards potentially dropping or struggling to maintain those standards in a cash-strapped environment is hard, actually.
And it's almost something like that is more preventable than, you know, we're going to see difficult things as doctors, we know that, but when you have things of this which is more, you think, preventable, you know, we just need people in the right positions doing the right thing with the right kind of funding. That makes it hard as well. I've seen some difficult things that have hit me personally hard. I think when I worked in obstetrics, I saw a very poor outcome for a newly delivered baby once, and I also saw a spinal cord injury that the person involved was a very sort of similar age to me, and that was very difficult to see. But I think in general, the things that I end up kicking myself about are kind of mistakes I've made, you know, because these are often patients coming in that are, just because I'm the one that's seen them, these patients could have seen other people, but it's when you kind of personally involved with a patient where you kind of screw stuff up and then you feel very drawn into it and very personally involved. But I guess the other option is that, you know, we're not perfect and these kind of mistakes would be done by other people. Maybe not the same mistake at the same time.
Everyone's human and we're all trying our best.
That's it. Do you think there'll be a second lockdown? Are we just in it? A mini lockdown?
Yeah, it's starting, isn't it?
The rule of six.
The rule of six. It feels to me like we're looking to our government to deliver something that isn't for the government to deliver. This is really very simple. We are human beings and we spread coronavirus between each other. Now, the government can try and guide us on ways to minimise that, but ultimately it's down to us. You know, if there's a rule of six and you go out and have, you know, with 20 of your mates, then COVID's going to spread. You know, it's. I think there's a lot of personal responsibility that we've all got to have here. There are ways to do things safely. I'm really quite frankly annoyed at the number of people that are going out without wearing masks when they're asked to do so. It's very selfish. Maybe COVID wouldn't be any big deal to that person, but it would to perhaps their family or friends, or the old lady they bump into in the supermarket.
I mean, we look at the lockdowns and we kind of see, oh no, another lockdown, but these are things that are going to stop things. So if this is what is needed, I like the fact these local lockdowns are now kind of accepted. This is the way to do it. There's no point. Look, I think when we first locked down, we had like a handful of cases in some parts of England. Yeah, they all locked down. I mean, at least we're getting more sensible about this. And as you were saying, it's not one thing that's going to stop it. It's just doing lots of things, but the basic things as well, just to get the R number down.
Wear your masks.
Social distancing, all of that stuff. I'm starting my first year at university. I wanted to know what you would recommend I do to help anxiety, living and stress as... let me read that again. Maybe I should put my glasses on so I can actually read it. I just started my first year of university. I wanted to know what you recommend I do to help anxiety, living and stress, but also best things to do to limit COVID spread. Thanks and stay safe. Very pertinent because
I've got a nephew doing the same this weekend, who switched countries to do so. So I think, I mean, I'm pretty tuned into this at the moment, and I can see how difficult it is to leave home, perhaps leave the country that you were born in, to go and pursue your dreams, and not have all of the buffers in place that we had. I mean, no freshers week.
That's unbelievable.
That is just...
I mean, so much for me, university is not just about the course, it's growing up and learning to balance the course.
It's
and that whole side of it.
And forming friends that, some of my best friends are those that I met on my first day of medical school, who I still see and work with locally. So I think the important thing is that you tap into all of the resources that you've got where you can start to meet people either online or in very small groups of less than 6. Don't sit in your room feeling miserable. That's not going to help. You are safe to go out if you've got your mask on, if you're washing your hands and you abide by the government rules, then you're as safe as you can be. But try and have some fun along the way as well. Even if it's Zoom parties or whatever, and you're all sat in your rooms drinking beer in front of your computers. Hey, well, at least you're getting to know each other. And I think, watching my nephew, he's been WhatsApping other kids on his college course that he didn't know. I mean, in my day, you just kind of pitched up and hoped that someone would talk to you. So technology, I think, will help. It will help because it does mean people can be more connected. And hey, let's just hope that if we tolerate this long enough, we'll ride this out, and come next year, things will be very different, and maybe we can get out there and enjoy things a little bit more.
Also, there's going to be loads of people having your same feelings of anxiety and not wanting to put yourself out there. And they're probably people you've got stuff in common to share the experience with. So don't feel like, even though you may be on your own, that there isn't other people experiencing what you are, and try and connect with those people in some way and get yourselves through it. What is it like to go into medicine as a second career? Were you significantly older than your classmates, and did that feel weird? I guess this one for me. Did you have graduate entry medicine in your?
We had graduates in my year at medical school. We didn't have a separate graduate entry program, so there were a few people who joined us for the standard 5-year course.
I really enjoyed it. I felt I wouldn't have got into medicine the first time round with my grades. So, and it was really nice actually, because that was one of my big anxieties going back to uni, was I didn't really want to be a student again, but I went to a specialist kind of graduate medical university. So I was with 100 people that were all basically in the same boat as me. I was slightly older than the average, so we tended to have a lot of people that were like 1 year or 2 year out of uni, so like 23, 24-year-olds. I was 28, and then we had another kind of wave around about my age, but much more so people that decided during their first degree that they wanted to do medicine. And also I then integrated into a university that was undergraduate medicine in my 3rd year, and that was great for for me and the other graduate medics, because we were suddenly with a load of people that did medicine as their first degree, like these real superstars that were really academic and really smart. And then I think it was good for them because they were integrating with people like us who maybe had a bit more life experience and had worked other jobs, had other degrees. And so together, I think we all pulled each other up. And yeah, I would definitely recommend looking into it. It's not perfect. I know nowadays there's less funding available. And it is a slog, you know, it is a big sacrifice. I had to, over those few years, you know, between the ages of 28 and 32, that's a huge, big part of your life where, you know, you would really be kicking on with your career and getting a house and family and all that. So all that stuff to some extent has to take a bit of a back seat, but it was certainly the right decision for me, not the right decision for everyone. But yeah, if you're interested in it, look into it because it's definitely possible. Super duper. That sounded very rehearsed, didn't it?
No, it's good.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. That's it. That was just a different message from one of my friends. I was just about to read it out. I was like, do you want to catch up for a coffee? I was like, hang on a minute. Okay, so now on to our YouTube. How many questions have we got here? I haven't actually looked. 96. They might not all be questions though, they might just be like, how are you doing? First one, how have you guys been holding up? What are the ways that you've been coping with COVID? Love the videos. Thanks, Mac.
Yeah, there's been a bit of plastic bricking going on, hasn't there, really?
Plastic bricking.
Plastic bricking, yeah. You know, the Lego's been out a bit.
We've done some board games, you've done some online escape rooms.
Yeah, online escape rooms, board games, they've been good. Getting out on my bike's been good.
Played a bit of cub, Swedish chess, Viking chess.
No, Viking chess, yeah, chucking lumps of wood around a green. Yeah, that's good. Plenty of catching up with mates in very small clusters.
Lucky.
And family.
I think we are going to suffer in the winter a bit more because, you know, biking kind of off, barbecues kind of off a bit. You know, I mean, that is more of a struggle. You're going to have to get more Lego, I think, to get through the winter.
I think it might be a winter of Lego and board games and escape rooms online.
I like this one. So a bit of a lighter question. Virtual Halloween party. What would be your costume? I mean, I did, I was going to say an amazing one, but you don't want to sort of blow your own trumpet. I did one, have you seen Stranger Things?
Yeah.
I did 11 from Stranger Things, which I had to shave my hair for it. I'll put a photo up here. It was pretty mad.
Well, I'd say, you know, given one of my other house residents, I'd say I wouldn't have too much choice about what I'd do. Where is he?
What's the name of the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch? This is Huff.
This is Huff. So he's a bit of an old man, but with this perfect accessory, I guess I'd have my witch's hat on and get my cauldron out.
He's like, why did you wake me up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go on, you can go back to sleep now.
So this question has not only been asked, it's had 15 likes, so people really want this asked. Are you ready for it?
Okay, go on then.
And I'm sure loads of people want to know this. I want to know Sonia's summarised life story. I mean, where do you start? Like, this is your life.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. Where do we go for this?
How do we go for this?
Yeah.
So I guess we go from like.
So you're a local lady.
Local lady.
Yeah?
I still live in the town in which I was born, although I was away for a while. And pretty straight through academic route, straight into university, straight into work as a doctor.
Your mum's from Serbia?
My mum's from Serbia, so I'm pretty diverse with the genes, which is good. Yeah. Bit of travelling along the way, various escapades on in the Amazon and snowboarding and things like that to generally try and test the strength of my bones.
And we've actually found them because you've broken several and you've come into the hospital.
Yeah, I have. I like to test out the local orthopaedic services. So just
how
make sure.
Are they?
Yeah, they're all right. They're all right. I'm doing like a randomised trial of each of the surgeons. Yes, and then I would say the other most important thing really is I rediscovered Lego after my dark years, meaning I played with it when I was a kid and didn't touch it until the day after I had got my consultant job, when I went shopping and passed the Lego store and went inside and bought a kit. And that was a rekindled new passion that has actually taken up a considerable amount of my time now and started to design my own stuff and exhibit it. And it's a really nice release from the pressures of medicine, and I think it's as much part of my identity as being a doctor is.
I think many people have responded to that as well. And recently you were in the Financial Times
Oh,
newspaper.
I was, yeah.
Based on the Lego stuff.
Based on the Lego.
So I'll leave a link down below for you guys to check that out.
Yeah, that was on which Lego sets to buy.
Very good. How much more stress has the pandemic put on medical professionals?
Loads. That'll do.
Okay, next question. I think we kind of talked about that before,
Yeah.
haven't we? Are you currently building or thinking of building anything new with some Lego? They put Legos, so they're definitely American here.
Yes.
No. So what have we got on the construction? Well, we've got this one down here, haven't we? That's about to come.
Yeah, but that's like Lego. We're not talking Lego.
Oh, we're talking about your own
Yeah, we're
builds.
talking
Okay, cool.
proper
Sorry.
Legos, that's
We've got
nice.
loads of sets, I think, lined up in boxes ready to be made.
So this will be the big display for next year's Lego show, and this is a tiny part of it, which I'm still playing with. And the actual model is going to be about 2 foot by 2 foot large, and will have a motor in it. And one of the projects that we've just finished actually was motorising the Lego orange Porsche 911 with the help of my nephew, which if anyone's tried it, that's reasonably hard work, and we're working on the Bugatti, but the Lego Power Functions motor isn't quite powerful enough to move the Lego Bugatti, so we're trying to problem solve that one.
This is one here which we may have to cut out depending on what you say. It says, what will Dr Sonia miss most about having Dr Hope as a flatmate?
Oh, let me see. So there'd be the fact he's kept me in cognac has been pretty good. I think honestly though it's going to be the cat sitting and knowing that when I'm on 24-hour shifts, my little darlings have been fed and watered and cuddled.
That's
They're
true.
gonna
I'm
miss
going to
that.
miss the cats. You know, normally when Sonia's away, I often house sit for her, and I send you photos of the cats. You're going to have to do that now.
Am I going to have to
For
do
me,
that?
definitely. According to science, milk first, then hot water is the correct way of making a cup of tea. Do you agree?
No.
Milk first, then hot water.
No.
You know, we are pretty
Really?
English, and I would always put hot water in first.
Hot water. Even
Yeah.
being half Serbian, I know that.
Very, very weird. But what is science? So we're if this is according to science,
Well, I'm a scientist.
well, we're going against it. There's dispute amongst the science community. I would say I'm going alternative medicine on this
Yeah,
approach.
you're an alternative on this one. Yeah, I'd just go with the hot water first, really. Otherwise, then it cools it down, and then it doesn't release the tea hot enough, does it?
True. What are your thoughts on how different countries have managed COVID-19? I personally don't know a lot about how countries have managed them. I know the big one for me is kind of Sweden, isn't it, with their kind of not really locking down. But don't forget that people sort of think that, they haven't locked down, so everything's been normal. They've been socially distancing. They've been wearing masks. They are still doing things to slow it down.
You know, I'd say time will tell. I actually don't know. You know, some countries that have had more of a relaxed policy, does that mean that when this whole pandemic is over, they'll have been hit harder for a shorter period of time? I don't know. I think we can only really answer that question looking back at it in about 5 years' time.
What I would say, and I haven't looked into this a lot, I don't think Britain has done a particularly good job personally, but I do think, I think from what I hear in New Zealand is the place that's done it well. But what we've proven, even when you do get rid of it from your country, it's only going to be a matter of time before someone brings it back in. That's always going to happen. So I think people were celebrating when there wasn't any cases there, but
It lasted 3 weeks.
while it's still out there, it's a bit of a early celebration, isn't it? From your perspective, do you believe a second wave is likely at this rate?
Oh, yes. And a third. And probably a fourth.
Okay, this is an interesting one. It's got the most votes I've seen so far. Okay, for Sonia, it says for Dr. Sonia, what is Dr. Hope's most annoying habit? What is something unexpected you learned about it?
About Dr. Hope.
I knew I'd regret this. 34 people want to know this question. I want to know it as well, actually.
Shall I be really honest?
Yeah, go on. I'll just cut it out if it's too bad.
I think it's that you know, having teenagers in the house and stuff, with the family over, you kind of get used to the fact that, you know, you go fairly slowly in the morning and you're fairly quiet for a while and let them wake up. Well, Dr. Ed doesn't generally get out of bed until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's that sort of creeping around the house all day thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Was this while I was on night shift? Probably not.
No, just
generally. I am definitely a night owl.
No,
People have clocked onto it when they see my video uploads at like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, no, that really didn't bother me.
Will Dr. Sonia be able to visit in some future videos? We've already talked about
I think
this.
if Dr. Ed has me, I think I might.
Definitely. What's something you wish you could have told yourself 6 months ago before the pandemic started? That is a good question.
Well, 6 months ago, before the pandemic started, I was in New Zealand on holiday. I think I would have said, miss your flight home.
That's a good one. Well, I mean, my biggest thing, and I think a lot of people have this, and it's still true to some extent, was the unknown.
Yeah.
Like, I was really kind of worried about, from what was coming out of Italy at the time. Obviously, I think what was coming through from Italy was really the worst case scenario, and I was really concerned with how bad this was going to hit. Now, I'm not taking away from how serious it's been, but I would have just said to myself, it's going to be okay. I think I was thinking that, based on the numbers, that we would lose a few colleagues, you know, at the hospital. And I know we have.
Scared me.
I know we have, but not quite the number that when I looked at the kind of maths, you know, at the time, what we knew hasn't been quite that. But yeah, so that's what I would have told myself, that, you know, it's going to be okay. What is something you guys like to do when you're looking forward to getting back to doing again once it's safe?
Oh, travelling the world looking for monkeys in the Amazon, or maybe out in Borneo or somewhere.
I think travelling's definitely on my thing as well. Just seeing friends in kind of larger parties. I used to do a little festival as well, like big garden party that you've been to a couple of times. I want to do that, but we can't do it. Okay, this is a good one. What are your favourite Marvel Cinematic Universe characters?
Okay, this is the bit where I'm going to get it all wrong and not know the difference between Marvel and the other one. DC, yeah.
But you like Iron Man, don't you?
Well, I do like I do like Iron Man, because I took the superhero quiz, and it seems I'm a bit of an Iron Man because I'm quite geeky and gadgety and stuff. But I was in this shop yesterday and Deadpool was there with a mask on. Maybe I'll wing you the photo of Deadpool with a mask on.
So he had his actual mask and then another mask on.
And then he had like a surgical mask on. And I have to say, Deadpool went right up in my ratings yesterday.
My favourite, I think, is Spider-Man. But, you know, it's every geeky guy's favourite, I think, isn't it? Oh, this is a good one. Have you treated a criminal before? If yes, was it unnerving or scary?
Yes.
Yes to both?
I've treated lots of criminals. I've had lots of people that I've had to anaesthetise who've been attached to prison officers, and that's never particularly bothered me.
You disproportionately get a lot of criminals come in because that type of behaviour tends to more likely be associated with medical issues, you know, not neglect as well as trauma, isn't it, basically? Yeah,
I think the most disturbing thing for me actually was when a murderer of a school colleague of mine, school friend, was admitted to the local hospital, and finding that he was in, I didn't treat him, but that I think might have been really very, very tricky.
I've seen, we get people coming to A&E all the time that have been arrested. I've had a couple. I don't find it unnerving, actually. I never find it. I always feel very much in control because there's always police there and security as well if you need it. I've had a couple times where I've just had bizarre incidents because they've just been quite strange people. Like one chap kept asking me to Google him. I didn't, because I didn't want to know what he'd done.
Don't you ask most people to YouTube you?
Yeah, exactly. I should have said that to him. Google you. You should Google me. And also I had another chap who came in. So you should never ask, as a medical professional, never ask what someone's done unless it's directly kind of relevant to the medical history.
It's not very British, is it?
It's not very British, and it will impact how you treat them. And you know, I think also you have to be professional and you have to treat them with dignity and courtesy as you would everyone. The only funny incident I have with this, and it's not funny, it's quite horrific, but it's funny in the end, was that we had this prisoner getting wheeled through he'd actually been admitted because he'd swallowed loads of stuff as a kind of he was in prison, deliberate self-harm, but also attention-seeking behaviour. And he was off for a scan to see where everything had ended up. And as he was going through the ward, one of the healthcare assistants stupidly asked him, while he was going through the ward, what are you in prison for? And so going through the ward where you can hear all the other patients in the bay, he just shouted out that he'd killed loads of people, which wasn't true. But then we had to then go back to everyone in the bay and say, yeah, that's not true. He hadn't done that. It was just extremely awkward, and most of the patients actually found it quite funny. But I can imagine if you're very nervous in hospital, the last thing you want to hear is this type of thing. So, we shouldn't be asking that. It was kind of our fault, really. Yeah. Okay, guys, so that's a bunch of your questions answered. I didn't realise there'd be so many. So we'll cut the video here. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll do another video with a bunch of the others, just so there isn't like a 2-hour video. Yeah, there's a lot of questions. Okay, so but that's nice to know. Thank you. It's nice to know we're that popular. Yeah, and really good questions on a huge variety of things. Yeah. So we're going to work our way through the rest now, but we'll leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out the next one where we'll find out even more stuff about Sonia and I.